Hello, welcome back. It's week 77 on Out on That Line. I'm Geoff with my co-host Alex. Alex, how you doing this week?
Geoff, I'm feeling crazier than a rainbow trout in a car wash right now. We got a great album on tap this week. I'm excited.
We have a banger album on tap for this week. It took us a little while to get to it, but we finally did. This one was always on the back burner for me. I was like, it's one that we should do because it's just in this genre. I think it's a really new, kind of fresh take on it, and that's something I always enjoy from a genre that I've listened to for years and years. So the album is by PUP, and the album title is The Unraveling of PUP the Band. So we're going to get to that later. But there's some other news on the horizon. There's some upcoming releases, so we were just going to talk a little bit about what we want to do in the coming weeks.
Yeah, so we have a couple options, a couple things that have come out, some things that were, some things that are, and some things that have not yet come to pass.
I always appreciate Lord of the Rings reference. I always appreciate that.
I'm always going to work a Galadriel reference in, almost like it's a Frank Zappa bit, and get that out of the way.
Oh, dang, a twofer.
Bang, bang, bang.
There you go.
Yeah, no, we have some interesting options. So I'll throw a couple out at you that a couple people have thrown at me.
Okay.
Arcade Fire has a new album out.
Oh, boy.
I had a feeling I knew how you felt about Arcade Fire. I had a sneaking suspicion. There's a lot of Arcade Fire I really like. I got a lot of questions about this album. So by no means advocating for it, just
we could take a peek at that one. I mean, I think there's one Arcade Fire song that I like. I think it's that one from Where the Wild Things Are.
Everyone loves that. Wake Up.
Yep, I think that's the only one I've really ever heard by them. But I just get the vibe from that band that I'm not really gonna like it. But we'll see. What are the other options here?
Well, Geoff, first of all, I don't want to paint with a broad brush, but all Arcade Fire diehards are terribly obnoxious people. So I'll give you that.
Well, I figured. They're Canadian, right?
I don't know, honestly.
Because I find Canadian bands to be very pretentious.
Which is so interesting, because the Canadian people on the whole are so lovely.
That's a lie. That's just what they tell you. They've sold you a false bill of goods on that, my friend.
Well, I bought into the cultural depiction of them, because it's warm and comfortable, like Grandma's cookies. Eh?
Well, I mean, I think the most accurate depiction of them was from Super Troopers 2 in the Mounties. They were a bunch of assholes.
Yeah, honestly, I don't remember that movie.
Exactly. Because the Canadian, they wiped it from your brain because it depicted them in a negative light. They make terrible maple syrup and they're terrible people.
Yeah, you know what? You wouldn't think so, but Canadian maple syrup does suck the bag.
It sure does.
It's really not good.
No.
So, okay. Well, we'll keep that in mind. Arcade Fire fans, you're on notice, you fake syrup motherfuckers.
Yeah, you just got a red letter in the mail. Yeah, for sure.
No idea what you're in for. Let's see what else is on my list. There was Arcade Fire. Rolling Blackout's Coastal Fever came out with a new album. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
I am not. The name sounds familiar. Have you done something on them before?
I did. I did a reaction video on The Way It Shatters.
Okay.
Which is a great song.
I thought so. Okay. We could look I mean, that's something I've never heard of, so I feel like I'm not going into that with any sort of bias like I might be with Arcade Fire.
Yeah, well, yeah. That would be like my personal pick. Arcade Fire is one I go, it's Arcade Fire. The diehards are out there. People do want to hear about it. And best case scenario, Geoff, we both hate it, and you get to shred it for 60 whole minutes.
That has a certain appeal. That's for sure.
When was our last Shred Fest where we both really gutted an album?
I think it had. I'm just gonna take a quick peek at our Spotify, where you can find all of our episodes. So I'm just gonna take a look here under my shows, and also if you listen to it enough, it just pops right up on your homepage for you whenever we release a new episode. Let's see. John Baptiste. We weren't crazy about that one. We Don't Ride Llamas. You were not crazy about that one.
Correct.
Eddie Vedder. I don't think we got into like Shred Fest territory on that one.
No.
Let's see. When was the last one that we Tune Yards?
But I
We ripped
liked
that
Tune
one up.
Yards.
The newest.
Yeah, sketchy.
Oh, maybe we just have very different memories about that album.
I mean,
have very distinct. Did not like it.
I know I said some really critical shit, but on the whole, I liked a lot of the stuff that was on it. Like that Hypnotize song is crazy.
Lord, I don't think was a favorite.
Yeah, I shredded Lord bad.
Yeah, and I definitely did not like Lord very much. BB Rexa.
Yeah.
I think we both ripped that one up. Let's see. I'm trying to see how far back it was last time we did a Taylor Swift. Because I'll tell you, that was probably the last time that we really got in on an album.
I think that was like season 1 territory.
Yeah, that was a while back.
Well, I'll tell you,
good
Geoff.
for us. Thinking that how far I just had to scroll before I found things that we didn't like. We're very fair. We're very fair podcast hosts.
We're extremely fair. We want to like most things. We go in open-minded, and you can track our entire evolution on our YouTube. The community is growing by leaps and bounds.
Yes,
and
closing in on 200 subscribers.
It's coming. We can taste it. I got the scent of 200 plus subscribers in my nostrils.
Yes.
Jeff, I got to tell you, I like it. It's lifting me off the ground like when you put a cartoon pie on a windowsill to cool. And the little tendril of smoke comes out like a finger and beckons you off the ground. I'm loving it. 200 subscribers. So if you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe to the YouTube channel.
Yeah, now's the time.
Absolutely. You go to youtube.com/co/outonthatline.
Wow, look at you go.
Bing bang. Bing bang.
You did it. The committed to memory. Those few episodes where I hit you with that and it committed to memory.
Some slick plugging tonight, Jeff. I got to tell you. We both really maximized our minutes
never
here.
let it be said that trauma can't be positive, you know?
That's our whole philosophy. You had some albums. Hit me with them.
Yes. So, one that's actually coming out like in 2 days from when we're recording. So if you're listening to this on Monday, it will already have come out, is the new Kendrick Lamar album. Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, I think is what he's going to call that. Comes out on the 13th. Ooh, Friday the 13th. We have one of those this month.
That's a monster day. Yeah.
That's a monster day. So I'm very curious because, it's like when you have a title like that, I mean, he's had, what's that? Good Kid, Mad City, To Pimp a Butterfly, Damn. He's had some, album titles, but this one kind of makes it seem like it's going to be almost like a concept album almost. If he goes like genre hopping and does stuff other than the really like kind of straight hip hop that he's done on his previous albums, I'd be very interested to hear that. So I'm just very curious because the man is a genius. As far as like musical artists today, I think there's very few people at his level of creativity and the ability to like execute on that. I've enjoyed everything he's done, so I would imagine this album won't be any different, but it would be very interesting to see how it is.
Yeah, I'm flying totally blind. I didn't listen to the single. I got caught flat-footed by the release date. When you told me it's coming out as we're recording this in 2 days, you could have knocked me over with a goddamn feather. I was like, this album, like when we started this show, one of the first things we did was go through like, what albums can we look forward to coming out? Kendrick Lamar's new album was one of them. We have been tracking this thing for, I dare say, 2 years at this point.
Almost, yeah. We are coming up on 2 years. And
all of a sudden, it's just here. So obviously, I think I can speak for the both of us when I say that's probably what we're going to do next.
Yes, I think we should.
Yeah.
I think we got to strike while the iron's hot on that one. For sure. And then Death Cab for Cutie, past favorite of both of ours, is coming out with a new album in September. So quite a wait for that one. I think the 13th of September. Is that a Friday as well? No, it would have to be like 6 months from now, right? Hold on. September. No, that's a Tuesday. Is that a weird day to release an album? Is a Tuesday?
Yeah, absolutely.
But
But
what do they usually? Is it usually a Monday? So they get like the full week of sales?
no, albums usually drop on Fridays.
Okay.
It's a nice Friday treat. Weird. Friday on a
Well,
Tuesday.
I think they said I think they said that it was going to be the 13th. Let's see. But I guess it doesn't matter because it's months away. So we can worry about that later.
Sure.
But that's one that I think, and I was mentioning before we started recording that, like, I haven't really liked anything that Death Cab has done since Codes and Keys. Mm-hmm. But everything before that, I like quite a lot. You can play these songs with chords, something about airplanes, like Transatlanticism, landmark album for me. Plans, I think you and I wore that album out.
Oh yeah, big time.
Narrow Stairs came out while I was in college and had some bangers on it, like Bixby Canyon Bridge, one of the best opening songs that any album's ever had. And Codes and Keys was very good as well. I'm glad that he broke away from Zooey Deschanel because I think she's awful. I think she's the absolute worst. And I'm glad to see my boy Ben, happy again because it seems like he is.
What are you basing that on? Her bangs?
Just her whole thing, her whole vibe. New girl, she was the most frustrating, annoying person in that show. Everybody else was good enough to overcome that.
I got to tell you, I fell into a Winston Bishop compilation clip rabbit hole on YouTube.
Hell yeah.
It's the best.
Winnie the Bish.
Winnie the Bish. It's the best 20 minutes you'll ever spend just watching him play the hits.
He's so fucking funny on
incredible.
That show. The episode where he's got, like, what color shoes? He's wearing green shoes or something. And he's like, oh, these are brown. And they were like, well, what color do you think you are? Just like coming up with that joke and finding a way to make that land without it being, I don't think there's any like problematic part of that. It just so fucking funny. And how straight he played it where he was like, what do you mean? These shoes are brown. They're like, what color do you think you are?
I remember all the other bits around that. They're brown, like Kermit the Frog. He's a brown frog.
Yeah.
Brown, like the color of money.
Man, that show could get on a roll.
Dude. Oh.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. We should start an offshoot New Girl podcast and rewatch the whole show. Oh, man.
Do you want to just do like one episode?
I'd love to.
Yeah.
I'd love to.
Per podcast episode, that'd be great.
Snake it in, yep.
I would enjoy that. But yeah, I have Zooey Deschanel just seems terrible. I've heard nothing but terrible things. She spends a lot of time around Austin. So you hear and I used to work in the service industry, so you hear a lot about, different people and how they act towards servers and things like that. And she was never great from what I hear.
That's trash. You hate to see it.
Yeah. I don't know if Ben Gibbard is any better, but he lives in Seattle, so I don't have to deal with that.
He's not your problem.
Yeah. He's someone else's problem.
Well, it looks like, and there are untold other releases. I just don't know what they are, but it looks like we've kind of found ourselves a nice little slate here.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's, what do you say? So we're going to do Kendrick first.
Yep.
And then you want to knock out you're going to have to remind me the name of the other band.
Rolling Blackouts Coastal Fever?
Yes. And I'm going to have to read that 150 times to get that to stick in my head. It's like the same thing that you remembered the Big Thief album title. I'm like, this is just a bunch of random ass words.
Oh yeah, but it's my supercalifragilisticexpialidocious at this point. Dragon New Warm Mountain, I Believe in You.
You know what? I'm not going to look, but if I'm going to remember what you said, if you got even a bit of that wrong, I'm going to know you're a fraud.
Okay. You're a fraud, like Kermit the Frog. He's a brown fraud.
Oh, well, what was I had something I was going to say. Now it's slipped my mind, I'm sure. It's our podcast, so I'll just interject whenever it comes back to me.
Yeah, just scream it out.
Yeah. All right, well, do you want to get started on the PUP album?
Absolutely do it.
Okay, and after all that shit I talked about Canadians, here we have Canada's favorite pop punk band. Yes, they have unseated Simple Plan. I am sorry, folks, but we just speak the truth here on the podcast. PUP is Canada's, I almost said Canada. It should be Canadian. That sounds way cooler.
Yeah.
They are Canada's finest pop punk band, and this is a banger of an album. And I feel like a lot of times we try to hold back on telling people how we feel about an album right off and let them kind of hear our thoughts about it first. But I don't give a shit about that on this one. I enjoyed this album from the moment it started. I fucking loved it.
No, we have to lead with the enthusiasm because like I was bursting at the seams when we started like going through this and really listening to it. When you're like, let's do Pup. I hadn't listened to it yet. Tanner had heard it twice the day it came out. And somehow it just slipped through the cracks with me. I didn't prioritize it. So when you were like, we're doing it this week, I'm like, okay, cool. Now I'll get around to it. And was not expecting much of anything. Not that they're bad. I just wasn't expecting to enjoy this as much as I did. This album is lightning in a bottle. It's so fucking fun. It's a super fun album.
I feel like, and people may crucify me for this, but one of my favorite bands from the real like pop punk heyday, you know, when we had Newfound Glory and like all those bands, like the Warped Tour bands, Sum 41 was always a band that I was like, damn, they can get like way heavier than everybody else. Like somehow like they could take, you know, like I think it's Over My Head or something like that. One of their songs that it's just like gets super duper heavy. I guess their guitar player was like really into metal, like heavy duty, like death metal. So he would incorporate some of that. And I feel like I get that same feeling from Pup. You know, I think they're like songwriting, like lyrically, I think they're a little stronger than Sum 41 ever was, but in their ability to be like tight and just have almost like prog rock level changes in like time signatures and just the way they construct the songs, it's almost like prog punk. It's not even pop punk at this point. It's just like every time it feels like it's about to go off the rails. Like there, you can feel so much emotion, so much anger or joy or whatever they're trying to portray in this. You can feel it. And I feel like it's been a long time since I've really heard like new pop punk music and really enjoyed it. It all seemed like it was kind of like an imitation. It was like how the flavor of LaCroix, you know, it's like it sat next to some fruit once. You know, it's like that's what a lot of pop punk bands recently have kind of felt like to me, where it's just they're trying to just fill the void, but they don't really have the skills. You can't just do that. You have to do something new. And man, Pup did something new with this one.
It's really, really awesome. Like the fact that the concept of the album itself, which is like personifying Pup as Pup the Band, which is a corporation. It's like an LLC or something like that. But they've formed this kind of corporation, and it's about trying to figure out, you're burnt out and you're feeling like you're kind of running out of ideas. So you're trying to figure out what the next iteration of the band looks like. Like, how do we keep this thing going? A lot of this thing is a preoccupation with like, okay, we hit the big time, but how long will this last? And what do we have to do to keep it going? Which I think are the thoughts that definitely run through these guys' minds. But they're also not this. They don't treat this album like, oh, poor us. They're acknowledging at every turn. We're extremely fortunate and we're having fun. So we're going to have fun with this. We're burnt out, but instead of bitching about it, we're going to create an experience that kind of is the catharsis for that. And it's just fun, start to finish.
Yes. And I think Pup live would be bonkers. I mean, I might be a little bit too old at this point to really get in there and enjoy it the way that I would have. Because I can't even do that at Coheed concerts anymore. Like I can't get in the pit like that. And I feel like Pup would be a pretty intense one. Just like from the first song that we're going to talk about, Totally Fine. I just knew it was going to be different because I'd listened to their older stuff a bunch. You know, things like DVP, I think was the closest thing to like this version of Pup. But other than that, they had some like kind of very straightforward, straight ahead, like pop punk rock and roll songs. You know, the same kind of stuff that would have fit in that like early 2000s to like 2010, like kind of space where, you know, Blink-182 was basically on top of the planet. You know, bands like that were just massive. Warped Tour was a huge thing. From Totally Fine, though, it's the lyrics just seem so much more grown up than anything that era really produced. And I mean, I'm sure there's stuff that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head that like matches the emotional maturity or at least emotional awareness that Pup does on this album. So you'll have to forgive me if there's something that you just know I'm missing, folks out there. You can go ahead and comment, but do it nicely because I'm acknowledging there's probably something I'm missing. But the way that they like flow from verse into chorus and then back out of it, there's not a lot of bands that ever did that way. Like this is very much, that's where the prog thing comes in, where it's like you don't expect those things to drop when they do in the song. And from Totally Fine, like I was hooked on this album. So I mean, what, second song on the album, and I was just like zoned right in, did not miss a thing for the rest of it.
Yeah, this is where I strapped in because I, unlike you, was not super familiar with PUP before this. I had listened to, I think you did a single a while back, and I listened to that. But I mean, yeah, this was the song. I mean, where do you start? It's pop punk does anthemic choruses almost like no other genre. You get gang vocals thrown in there. I'm very reminded of Johnny Hobo. Who's not pop punk, but it has that same like angry screaming gang vocal where everybody's just a pissed off 17-year-old and they all just kind of throw their voices up in unison. It's great. And they hit it right on the button every single time. The chorus is absolute flames. They take advantage of those tricky little half steps and they misdirect you where it starts. You're like, this is going to resolve minor. And then it resolves major. They just like subvert your expectations. It's like a fun little trick. And exactly what you said about like they'll switch up, they'll go seamlessly from chorus to verse, and it's with these incredibly subtle changes in the beat, but sustaining the same driving tempo. It's fucking wild.
And the way they change the intensity that they're playing at, like the dynamics in the sound are, you know, there's like the ability to come up with that, but then there's also the ability to like make that come across on just a recording, you know. And I think live there's a zillion bands that can do that. You know, like if you don't sound good live, then you have no business playing at all. But it's very rare that, well, I shouldn't say very rare, but it doesn't happen as often that bands make that come across on recording and make it sound that exciting and vital. So I wonder if they recorded it all live. I don't know. But if they did not record this live and they did all these tracks like individual and it has this sort of like emotional power, then that's a damn good producer they have. Or if they produced it themselves, then they're more talented than I ever thought.
And I'm tempted to say they did do it live, except for some like synth patch stuff, like obvious stuff that would come from a machine. But I'm tempted to say the rest of it. I feel like I read something that said it was recorded live. Yep.
Okay. That makes sense because it really has a live feel to it. It just feel like it just has that energy. I think when, you know, listeners out there, when they hear it and they listen to it, they're going to know what I'm talking about because it just like kind of just gets into your bones. You know, it's the same way that I feel like Dirt by Alice in Chains, like they have very different results in kind of how they make you feel. But PUP is like, I don't know, this is definitely a concept album and it's so easy to follow along with kind of the story of how they do it. The way that they have the refrains in the 4 chords songs, they have 4 chords, 1, 2, and 3. And the way they have the refrains and it like brings you back into the fact that you know that they're basically like making themselves a corporation. Like you just imagine them in this building, in this meeting room, having all these arguments that they're singing about. And it's just such a fucking cool record.
It's a nice way to punctuate it. Like the little, like you'll do 3 songs and then they'll drop in one of the 4 chords interludes. And yeah, those themes come up. The 4 chord theme comes up and it's like negotiations breaking down in the boardroom. It's a great way to like break up the clusters, which is why I think it's no shock that the first 3 songs we picked are all grouped together.
Yes.
'Cause my first one was Robot Writes a Love Song. Super Blink-182 vibes on this. And the fucking use of harmonies was perfect. That infusion of the electronic stuff without letting it totally draw focus, just like fleshed out the sound really well. Controversially, I don't think this is an extremely well mixed album. There are points where like, you know, the vocals are way out of step, but I think when I say poorly mixed, unconventional is probably a better way to think about it.
Yeah. Because
I don't think they did that on accident. I don't think they're shitty at mixing. They don't make a mistake like that. So I think
Yeah.
it was an intentional choice, and it was honestly a fucking great one. So I don't care about the shitty mix because it's not on every song, but when it does show up, it's a great touch. They
Yeah.
do that very loose and messy kind of thing that I love in music, where they're just not afraid to do some goofy shit, and if it falls off the trail, fucking, we can still use it. It's a take. We love it. We'll do something cool like that. It's just like something they're really good at on this whole album.
Yeah, and I think that like the messiness or the vocals being a little bit off, like half step, I think that's a product of it being recorded live, and it not sounding as well mixed, because I think there's a big difference between like a very awesome, like exciting live sound and how that sounds coming across on a record.
Mm-hmm.
Like think about trying to think of a band that we've both seen live. Like think about Coheed. How that sounds on a record is much closer to how it sounds in concert because they record a lot of this stuff live. A band like Hall & Oates, I don't think tended to record live. So if you were at one of their concerts, it probably sounded a little different than it did on the albums. The albums are like perfectly mixed, perfectly recorded, like everything in its exact right place. And it's very difficult to do that, to be perfect when you're recording live. And I think with pop punk music and what PUP is trying to do with this, I think the better option was doing it the way they did. Like doing all these, laying them down as separate tracks, like, kind of like overdubbing guitar parts, all that kind of stuff. Like I feel like it would have made it feel a little less authentic. It would have really kind of driven the point home that rock and roll has gone completely corporate, which is I think what they're trying to avoid by having like all the references to like the negotiations are breaking down, like that corporate rock is never going to work. Like it loses the feeling that it's supposed to have when you treat it like that. And I think recording it live is almost like a little bit of a fuck you to the people that want them to be super polished. And I think it's a really, really great touch.
It's a great touch on a song that is like Robot Writes a Love Song is literally about two robots falling in love, and there's references all around it, like the syncopation in the drums has this like computer glitch sound to it. Mm-hmm. So it's all these nice little touches. It's like Blink-182 did a version of Kiss the Girl from The Little Mermaid, and it was about robots falling in love. It's cute, and it's not sophomoric, and it's got some great lines. There's a reference to Black Hole Sun, and correct me if I'm wrong, are you the one who hates that song?
I'm not a big fan of that song.
Okay, but you don't hate it?
No.
Okay. I knew someone in our group was anti-Black Hole Sun.
It's probably Rory.
I could see that as well. He might be.
I mean, the safe bet, if you're wondering like who hates something, the safe bet is Rory.
Yeah. Always assume it's Rory.
Yeah.
That's my motto.
Yeah, and he's not going to hear this anyway, so it won't matter.
Yeah, fuck him. Yeah, I don't know. Again, I just love that they like. Yes, they're just throwing stuff out there and seeing what sticks with stuff like that. Like, this is a fun fucking song. And then like the next one, also another one of my picks, Matilda. You did a singles video on this, or
yes,
yeah, or a reaction. So remind me what you had to say in that video to the best of your ability.
Just like the fact, like how it pops. I mean, I think is the main thing that I will always remember about this one. In the chorus, like talking about how they used to be this really cohesive unit. It's like, but now it's talking about the instruments breaking down as the relationship is breaking down, and like the band is breaking down. Now you don't even write the chords down. You don't even play me anyhow anymore. Now you just keep cranking them out like you're trying to numb yourself with all this work, but it's just not working out. And it's just the idea that it's like, are we doing this still for the right reasons, or are we doing this because now we're like point of no return? We don't have a choice but to keep doing this. I don't think I got that deep into it with the singles video that I did. I probably just said it kicks ass and it's a fucking awesome pop punk song because it's that. It's all of those things.
Yeah. Well, so I went and dug into the story behind it, and spoiler alert, it's a great story. So Matilda is the name of a retired guitar that was given to the lead singer, Stefan, I don't know how he pronounces it.
Probably Stefan.
Stefan. Yeah. Stefan, eh? So Stefan was gifted a guitar that he named Matilda, and he used it so much that it just like really started to sound like shit. And the rest of the band was like, dude, you gotta give it up with that. You gotta pack it in with that guitar. It sounds terrible. And he felt this like tremendous guilt and this wave of nostalgia about parting with this guitar. So this guitar meant so much to him, he ended up writing this ode to it. And it's just like, it functions both ways. It's a tribute to the guitar, and then it's, again, like a very earnest depiction of guilt and nostalgia and things we all feel. That first verse, left in the corner collecting dust, patiently waiting while my fingers rust. I was locked in the coffin case, not even on display. As you fret, my frets decay. You pick up your other and you strum away. I listen from the other room, try to pull you out of tune, because that guitar is horribly out of tune. They use it on the bridge in this song, and boy, does it sound like absolute trash.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing that I love about PUP is the sense of humor. They write this song about having to give up this guitar, and they're like, you know what would be funny? Is if we had it sound like shit on this record.
Yeah.
You know,
and
instead of just like totally being like up their own ass about making everything sound perfect, they were just like, yeah, fuck it. Why not? Let's put it on there.
And it was the last ride of Matilda. Matilda got to do one last little bit on the album before being put out to pasture.
Did they send it off like a Viking funeral?
I don't think so. I think it was more like Matilda left her boots in the ring, you know, like wrestlers do when they retire.
Okay. No, if they did like a Jimi Hendrix little bonfire.
I don't think so.
Something like that. Okay. Well, that would have been fun.
I think she's on a farm with a lot of other guitars.
Cross the Rainbow Bridge. Ooh, there's a bridge on a guitar. The end of the song. Whoa.
Damn.
Oh my God. I just blew my own.
Holy shit. Galaxy brain.
Yeah. The next song, probably my favorite one on the album, is Waiting. Just the way this chorus just fucking goes, man. Just the way they hit that. I love it. Like, that's everything pure about rock and roll that I love, is when they hit that chorus.
Oh, it explodes open like a fucking tube of biscuit dough. Like when they hit that, waiting, it's just bah! It just pops. The mix on this is so aggressive that when they hit that, it just explodes in your ears. And not like in a painful volume way. It's just like they hit their mark so hard all at the same time. It's such a fucking awesome payoff. And like, you've got this heavy ass riff throughout the whole thing. This one is fucking loud. This one is fucking heavy. And then there's this kind of like bright sense of like fun in the chorus and the way that it's like brighter than the rest of the song. And it's a seamless transition. That thing they're so good at between the dynamics, between the sections. Wild guitar, another anthemic chorus. This song fucking rocks.
Yeah. I just don't know any other bands that like in recent memory have gotten me this excited. The only one I can think of that's like more recent, I guess, is 4 Year Strong. I mean, they've got some like, but they veer like more into the hardcore territory with still keeping it like very pop punk. Great band if you haven't checked them out. But this Waiting song, this is where they kind of get heavy too in that chorus. And that's what I really like, is just the variation of dynamics that they employ during this whole album. So not only just the storyline, which I think is really clever, how they've like cast themselves as this corporation and then talking about like business meetings are breaking down, you know, basically personifying a guitar in Matilda. There's like so many things going on that you could tell they were just like, well, we're just going to throw a bunch of shit at the wall, like you said earlier, and we're going to see what sticks. We're talented enough to make this work. And like Waiting, I think, is probably going to be the biggest song from the album. I mean, just the way that chorus pops, it's got like radio hit written all over it. And just the way the verses go, like, again, I think I haven't talked about this in a while, but probably because we haven't done a country record in a while, but the way that some people will turn a phrase like "your face is glued to the back of my eyelids," you know, it tells you that you're thinking of them. It's also that you can't help but think of them because it's glued there. There's nothing you could do about it, even if you wanted to. So just the way that they express lyrics, it's always so simple and so to the point that it's impossible not to follow along with what they're saying. And then the chorus just explodes with all of this emotion, like everything that's building up in the verses that you want to release. They give you such a good payoff in the chorus on this one.
It reminds me of, and I'm potentially about to say a controversial thing, but it reminds me of Teenagers Scared of Living Shit Out of Me, but not shitty.
Yeah.
Where like, it just
whoa.
I hate that song. I hate that song.
Whoa.
I hate that song.
Buddy, let's press pause on PUP for a hot second. Oh my God, for real?
Yeah, I can't stand it.
Oh, do you like that album overall?
Yeah, but it's just like cilantro. You know how some people just taste like soap to them? That song hits my ears. I'm like, nope, get out of here. It just sounds so fucking fake to me.
We might have to do that album.
Okay.
This might be like, because that album fucks. I love that album.
I haven't listened to it in a long time.
I think that's one of the best like concept albums that we've had in our generation. I mean, I think it's that good. So we could definitely do like a one-off episode about that.
Okay, like we did with Alice in Chains.
Yeah, and I think also that might be a fun one because I'll bet you Tanner is very familiar with that album too.
I could see that. A little special.
That might be a
star.
fun one. Yeah.
You guys can beat me up for having bad taste.
Because it's like musical theater too. I mean, Welcome to the Black Parade is just like, that song's basically a musical.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah.
Yep. It's the end of the second act. We got to send this thing home with an inspirational message. Here you go.
Yeah.
Well.
Back
I guess
to
we'll have to do that.
Our regularly scheduled programming, but I think that's a good idea because I think that album fucks. And I can't wait to get in the ring with you about teenagers, my friend.
Oh, well, here we go.
Ring the fucking 12 bell. Rounds. Yeah. What's the guy's name that they had the clay version of him on Celebrity Deathmatch? Miles something. The judge.
Oh shit, the judge.
He had his own show.
Oh, it's like Mills something. Mills.
Yeah, it's Judge Mills, I think.
Is it Mills Lane?
Mills Lane.
I'm going to double check.
You'd be like, let's get it on.
Yep. I want to get clean fat. Let's get it on.
That was a hell of a show. Didn't they
sure
bring that back?
Mills
or they
Lane.
tried to?
They did try to. I didn't watch any of the new stuff. The old stuff was great. Watching Jennifer Lopez and Dolly Parton fight with their like boobs and butt. With Dr. Ruth on commentary, I was like, this is the funniest shit I've ever seen.
It was very funny.
So
there
good.
were some great fights on there. There was some good ones. Well, do you have anything more to say about Waiting?
No.
Okay. Well, let's move on to your last pick, Habits.
So I will say, this was a difficult selection. It was my final selection. I will say one thing about this album. It does start to fall off a little bit towards the end for me. Mm-hmm. Again, not like, it turns into total dog shit and falls apart in your hands. It's just like, as excited as I was getting at the beginning, it's around the time we hit Four Chords Part 2, like right in the middle. Like, that's where it kind of like marks the start of where it kind of wanes for me. Obviously, Waiting, crazy, but like after Waiting, it's difficult. But I think I landed on Habits because it reminded me a lot of things, and I think we like that they threw a lot of stuff at the wall during the album itself. I like that they threw a lot of stuff at the wall in this song. They do, at one moment it's like electronica Pixies. At another moment it'll be like prog Weezer. There's some fucking Bomb the Music Industry in there, which makes sense because they fuck with Jeff Rosenstock. But like, they were really just mixing in these insane combinations and trying it out. And I love it. I love that they like to do the little harmonies and the minor half steps and the weird time signatures. And it's just like really cool to watch them in the scope of one song experiment like that. Even if I don't love the song, I love what it stands for.
Yeah, you can find something to appreciate with it for sure. And I like the comparison to Bomb the Music Industry. It's another past band that I've listened to for years and years. And I think just strictly thanks to Rory. There's a few bands that are like that. So I think that's why we keep him around.
Yeah,
You know,
he might hit one.
He's done enough good that he's still skating by on good graces, I think. But like that, the way that Bomb the Music Industry can just sound like so frenetic and like there's a zillion things happening at once, but you know there's like a song in there. It's like a punk version. Some of the songs are like a punk version of Captain Beefheart, where there's just like so much shit going on. It's like, how do I pick anything out here? Like 493 Ruth, I think is a classic example of that. Like side projects are never successful. Like there's just a lot going on with Bomb the Music Industry. And I feel like with Pup, they're a little more focused, but you can still hear that. Like, it's like they've got the craziness like in a chest with some chains around it. It's trying to get out. So you hear that kind of tendency all the time, but you never hear them fully unleash it, which I think is their strength. I think it's because they know exactly where that limit's going to be. And I think as they get through the end of this album, they got a lot more on like the prog side, less of the just straight like pop punk side and just like heavy on let's make the end of this weird. Like this is where everything is falling apart. Like this is where we need to like focus on the emotional aspects of everything that's going on. And I just think the last part of the album for me, I really like it because it's so different from the rest. I can certainly understand when somebody doesn't, when they don't feel like it's as strong as the other stuff, because it doesn't deliver the same emotions. It certainly doesn't give you the same pop that Waiting does, you know, towards the end of the album. But I think for me, because I was so used to listening to a ton of pop punk, and I think probably safe to say a lot more than most people, that when a pop punk band gets a little different, I really like that. You know, and I think that's what I really like about the second part of this album.
And I think it's cool. Like to reiterate, I don't think like, yeah, and then you get to the back half of this album and it's fucking dog shit.
Yeah.
Like that's not it at all. It's just like in comparison with the stuff that was really sucking me in, I could also mark the point where I'm like, okay, we're coming back down to earth a little bit. But that's not even necessarily a bad thing because you've shown that you can step outside of your comfort zone and come up with something that's really interesting and doesn't train wreck. That's really cool. So might as well do, again, we're trying everything. So you might as well do something that's more in your cue zone like they do in songs we're not talking about, Cutting Off the Corners and Grim Reaping. Yeah. Grim Reaping in particular encapsulates like the entire idea of the album, the identity crisis. It's a lot of thinking out loud, and it's not like the most ambitious thing, but it's one of the most heartfelt ones. There's this like great trumpet, great bass that like has that plucky sound that reminds you of the early 2000s punk, pop punk, ska aesthetic. So yeah, towards the end, they kind of start playing the hits, and once they've been doing their weird stuff, it's an adjustment, but it's not like a dip in quality. It wouldn't be fair to call it a dip in quality, but it does slacken a little towards the back half for me.
Yeah, it definitely went less aggressive, more introspective, and I think I can certainly see where that feels like kind of a fall off from the first part of the album. I think when you're, and I think that's the difference between being somebody that, like, I know you've obviously listened to pop punk, but I think it's more because you've always been around people that listen to a ton of it. Yeah. And less of that you have gone out of your way for it. So I can absolutely understand why somebody that's, you know, probably a little more casual about pop punk and punk music in general, like would not enjoy this. For me, I think it's when, you know, same thing when like Coheed does weird one-off acoustic covers. Like I just love hearing a band that I love do something else. So I think that's why I like Pup getting a little slower, a little softer, a little more introspective. You know, I think that's what I really enjoy about the back half of it.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Yeah. And again, it was more, I guess, in terms of falling off, it's more like my enthusiasm, which I don't know if that even makes it sound worse, but it's just like, oh yeah, they're really fucking, they're off the map. And then when they kind of bring back some structure to it, it's just an adjustment. So it's not like, wow, this got bad. It's like, oh, this got a little more conventional. Yeah. It's got a little more, formulaic would be a mean thing to say. It's not formulaic.
I think it's fair though. There's a lot more structure to it. There's less of the prog elements. I think it's fair.
Okay. Well, we'll call
Yeah.
it structured. The back half is more structured, and if you feed me chaos, I'm gonna want more chaos. So it was
That's
just
fair.
an adjustment for me.
Yeah.
But then there's the last song on the album, which was one of your picks, which I think sends it off beautifully.
Yes. And this one, I think this, like when I listened through the two songs that I was like, okay, for sure the two I'm going to talk about is Waiting in this one. Pup the Band Incorporated is filing for bankruptcy. So very much a bomb the music industry sort of title. It's just like a very like meta sort of thing that they did, and really just like they leaned into it the most with this last song that they've been kind of getting at the whole album. And I like how tongue in cheek it is. I'm failing upwards again. I might pull it off if I don't fuck this up before it pays off. It's just like the acknowledgement that, maybe their talent has made them very lucky. It's like there's a lot of bands that want to do what they've done, but the talent that they had allowed them to do it. And I think like they kind of look at their creativity and their like process as a sort of currency. And that's what they're kind of referencing here. It's like, well, we're going to run out of this eventually. Like we're going to spend everything that we've got and then we're going to be washed up. But for right now, we can still do some weird shit and make it work. And I think that's what they really did with this one. Is it's probably the weirdest song on the album for me. It's probably the most off the wall, but I think that's what I like the most about it.
Yeah, and it's one last neuroses dump before we leave. Like it's a lot of stuff that they've been talking about on this album, but this is their last opportunity to say what they want to say. So it takes on a more chaotic, angry kind of stream of consciousness kind of tone to it. Just like running through those questions like, okay, so like we know success and fortune are tenuous at best, so you can't, you have to constantly keep trying new things. But does that like, where does selling out fall into that? Is that selling out like by leaving the sound that brought you to the dance? Are you trying to be too commercial? Will people think you're a sellout? Does it matter? Don't you want to just like enjoy this lifestyle? What would happen if you weren't, this successful and this kind of influential as you are right now?
Mm-hmm.
It's this mixture of fear and gratitude in an absolutely quintessential punk song that has this heaviness to it. This is like punk is chaotic. It's not that heavy. This is a heavy punk song.
My favorite part of the whole song is the very last lyric. And I just want to thank all the sponsors. Like, it's just such a tongue-in-cheek way to do it. And you know what it reminded me of? Was bomb the music industry. And side projects are never successful. Let's see. I'm going to read the last part of it because I think it's such a relevant thing to like what Pup was trying to say is, through the glares on our windshield, we can't see each other's eyes, just McDonald's cups and wrappers that they're throwing at full speed. And yes, I long for a shout out. And yes, I always appreciate the irony. That's the only cool comfort that allows us to see is a goddamn billboard. Sing it with me. A billboard is the only thing preventing us from blindly crashing. And that really doesn't cheapen anything because, baby, we're all born to be businessmen. Every Fugazi record has a catalog number and a price tag. Every independent label is selling you another goddamn product. Let's see. And when I finally got to work today, I'll read the last part. When I finally got to work today, I ate my Subway sandwich and I drank my Coca-Cola Classic. And then I ate my Sun Chips. And I thought about the weekend when I'd fill up my Ford van with Mobil brand gas and drive to the Clear Channel venue. And I'd drink myself a Budweiser and play my Fender guitar through my Fender amplifier and tell the kids with a straight face through a Shure microphone and JBL speakers that corporate rock is for suckers.
Yeah, it's just perfect.
It's just such a classic, like tongue-in-cheek, like fuck you to the industry. It's like, look at all this talent that's around. Because I don't think bomb the music industry like ever made money. I think that was the point, was that they didn't make any money.
Yeah.
And I think the chaos that they really did, I think, bomb the music industry. I think the chaos that they started, almost like the Bernie Sanders of punk music, because they were like, just, it became less about the Warped Tour type of stuff and all that, all the ways that you could make money from it, and more about just like, we're just here to say fuck you. The same thing that the original punks in like the 70s and 80s wanted to say and the hardcore bands wanted to say in the 80s. We're just here to say fuck you, and that's it. And I think that's really something, man. I think that's something to aspire to.
That's yeah, I have nothing to add, as they say in old school. We got nothing to add. That was perfect. Wild audience
Well, that
applause.
does it for PUP the Band and their album, The Unraveling of PUP the Band. And I think it's safe to say, for me, this one's getting a hearty stream it. Go out and listen to this one, for sure.
Enthusiastic stream it. It's the most fun you can have with 35 minutes with some headphones in your ears.
Yes. Well, make sure you go check out the YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube. Be among the first 200 because time is getting short. We are getting closer and closer to that milestone. And to be honest with you, I don't know if I really ever considered that a milestone. I didn't really know what to expect. But what we've gotten is far more than I ever would have thought I could expect from this, for sure.
I definitely, like, not to be negative and put it out into the world, but I was like, at some point we'll plateau, we'll cool off, we won't be getting new people, like we'll hit a point. Mm-hmm. But that has not been the case, and it feels weird to sell you when you're like 200 people, but like again, I have to stress, from 0 to 200, not bad for two dum-dums from the north.
We picked ourselves up by our earphones.
Correct. Just like LBJ's dogs.
Just the hardest working podcast in show business. That's what we can call ourselves.
Hang our hat on that.
Well, make sure you go do that. Subscribe to the YouTube. You can get us on Instagram, on Twitter, through our email. You'll find all those links everywhere. At this point, if you're listening to us, I'm sure you know where to find that. But if not, the Instagram is @outonthatline. Twitter is @outonthatline1. The Gmail is outonthatline@gmail.com. Send us anything you want anywhere there. Comments on the YouTube page, we see every one of those. We respond to as many as we can. We've had some requests for some more lingua ignota, I think. So keep your eye out for that on the horizon. There's another one. I think you're in the hopper for the next singles video or reaction video or whatever you decide you're going to do. But we've got lots of content out there, folks. Singles videos, reaction videos. You can hear all of our podcast episodes, some special one-off episodes. You can still go see that Phantom Airwave video that you guys did. That's still cooking. I don't know how many views that has now, but I think it's well into the triple digits. So that's pretty cool. Any requests that y'all have, let us know what you want to hear. We've got our next couple weeks booked up, but we're always open to suggestions. So let us know what you want to hear. Is there anything else from you, Alex?
No, go on. Get out of here. Go listen to PUP.
Until next time.